Hello and welcome. Today we have on Joey Battaino. We've had him on before. Vice President of Communications and Broadcasting for the Saginaw Spirit. Play-by-play announcer as well. He's called over 700 hockey games at various levels in his 12-year broadcasting career. Thanks for coming back on, Joey.
Thanks for having me, Dustin. Probably about, 150 a year, Connor?
Yeah. Unfortunately for you, you had to watch a lot of that. So I don't know if you want to. Maybe those are like half games, so you can bring that 700 down to into like 600s and the high fives.
Well, luckily, time on ice doesn't count for me.
Right?
Oh man, so when did you get over that 700 mark? Is that recently, or are you like over that now?
Well, it was during the 18-19 season, so it's
because I saw an article. That's probably what you saw, Dustin. Sorry to cut you off, and that's why I'm. I didn't know if that was like recently or if what happened with COVID, if that slowed it down.
Yeah, it definitely slowed it down. Because we didn't play at all in the OHL during the 21 season, and then we stopped in March. So it's been slow going here the last couple of years, but it's good to be back, and I'm just glad that we were able to get in a whole season this year, and certainly had our challenges even this year with the border and everything like that. Just getting in games, we kind of had to retool our schedule around. We're actually still playing. We have 2 more weeks of our season to go to get in the 68, but we're going to get it in, so that's the positive there.
Yeah. Do you? We talked a little bit before we went live here, but you want to give us a rundown? I know it's kind of a rebuilding, growth, development year for Saginaw, but it seems like there's some real good young talent that you have on your team here. So it's got to be fun to watch those guys grow throughout the season. But how's everything going? Give us the update there.
It is. It's a different mindset. Even like going in, calling the games. We gone from back-to-back West Division champs and having players like Owen Tippett and Ryan McLeod, who are everyday players in the NHL now, to having 17 new players. And as juniors works, you start as a 16-year-old in the OHL, right? So a lot of young players, a lot of first-year players in the league. And so it takes a little while for them to get acclimated. Luckily, we've had a good group of veteran players that have been there before, that have been a part of our good teams in 2019-20, and kind of show the young kids the way. It took some time. For sure. Took some lumps there between December and February. But things are ending on a high note. We've won 4 of our last 6 games here down the stretch, which it's the hardest time of the year to win. And we've done that. So it's ending the year on a pretty positive note, which was good to see because, we really needed it. We needed a turnaround. It was pretty tough from the end of, really from Christmas on and until the end of March or about mid-March. And we've turned it on here. We've played much better as of late. We were down 4-0 yesterday actually, I don't know when this is going to air, Sunday evening to Guelph. And unfortunately, we came back, made it 5-4, but lost. But it just shows you like down 4-0 at home, no playoffs, easy to pack it in. These guys continue to push and make it difficult on the other teams. So that's good to see.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a couple high scoring games recently for Saginaw. So it looks like they at least have a little bit of spirit as far as goal scoring.
Welcome to the OHL, man.
Yeah, actually, can we talk about that for a little bit? Because the OHL, all of the major junior over in Canada, it's super fun. Maybe not so much the WHL, and they'll still get guys that will get a bunch of points, right? But especially with the O and even more so the Q, when you look at those points, they're just ridiculous. But the O is always fun because you get a guy and he's got like 120 points in 60 games, and you're like, I need to see this guy play. So. I know there's a few guys like that. I know who is it? Is it Wyatt Johnston?
Yeah, he's on fire.
I haven't seen him. I saw some highlights. I haven't seen him live or anything, but man, the few things that I saw, he's obviously a real good player. He's getting like 2 points a game right now. So you've obviously seen him live. How's that going? And how's that line that he works with?
It's elite. It's a star league, Connor. I know when you played in the North American League, they did everything they could to hook, hold, grab you, make sure. The guy scored 25 goals in the league. He was probably a star.
Yeah.
It's that difficult to score. It's not the case in the OHL. Everybody's getting about 5 to 7 power play chances a game. The Stars are usually very, elite players, first round picks in the NHL draft. And so the game is tailored to their skill more so than probably ever before. And it makes it very entertaining if that's, if you're into the kind of wide open hockey and the systems that teams are playing these days. Not a whole lot of, I don't want to say there's not a whole lot of defensive concept, I guess would be the best way to put it. More or less positionless hockey and freewheeling and looking to generate every opportunity they get. Right. So that's what's leading kind of to the higher scores. And then I think the goaltending as a whole is a bit younger, and you have to remember, like with the league not playing the year before, and a lot of those Ontario-born goaltenders not playing at all, that could be a little tough. If those guys were an NHL sign to get placed in the American League or somewhere else, or go overseas and play in Europe, then they didn't play last year, and that's a crucial year lost in development at that age. Mm-hmm. So, that could have something to do with it too, but it's entertaining. At least it's very entertaining. It's wide open. It's fun to call those type of games because there's always something. Yeah, there's always something going on. You mentioned Wyatt Johnston, and Windsor's got a sick team this year. They're very, very good, top to bottom. And speaking of teams, like they play defense too. Like they have Andrew Parrott, who's a Michigan guy, and he's 20-year-old in the league. Feels like he's been in the league for 10 years already. But
20's old for the OHL, man.
I know he's a 5-year guy. He's a lifer in the league, and Windsor picked him up from Owen Sound. He's tough, man. Like there's not too many guys left in the league like him, and getting him on their back end there's just a handful of guys that play it that way anymore in the OHL. So getting him was huge, and I think Windsor is going to be, if they can get their goaltending situation figured out. And with that being said, again, in this league, when I say goaltending situation, like if you can get a guy who can like keep a team down to 4, then they'll be in pretty good shape here in the playoffs.
I mean, when you look at the goals against average and the leaders at 2.39, that says something about how high the the goal scoring is for that league.
Yeah, it's just like I said, every opportunity to score is given in the league, whether it's specialty teams opportunities, whether it's concepts and systems and the way coaches teach the game. It's just it kind of runs like a mini NHL, and I think that's in a lot of ways the way the NHL is going right now. And so a lot of the coaches at this level are learning from the coaches at the NHL level, who are kind of letting their young players explore their entire skill set and what they have to offer. And so that's kind of trickling down now into junior, because this is exactly, that's where all these players are trying to go. They're just trying to get to the NHL, and that's the way they're playing it in the NHL. Like it or lump it, it's not for everybody. Some people like the defensive game. Some people like it a little bit more physical than it is now. But make no mistake, it's definitely entertaining.
Yeah, no, that's you actually sparked something there. So we talk about like the coaches tailoring their game, and you were then also talking about there's a decent amount of first round picks, and definitely in the NHL there's a lot of picks in the OHL that are drafted to play in the NHL and will end up playing in the NHL. Do you know some of these guys that get drafted really high in the first round, maybe top 10, top 15, top 20? I mean, do you know of any like how does that work within the coaches for the team that drafted him in that organization? Are they able to talk with the OHL teams? Do they have any like, hey, we want him on first line power play, we want him to play more defensive game, or is that strictly through coach to agent to player and not so much with the actual Saginaw use that as like an organizational team?
It's a good question, Connor. I've seen it go both ways, to be honest, and I don't want to name anybody specifically, but I've seen it where NHL teams have direct input, but I would say usually if it gets to that point, it's being accepted, I guess is the best way to put it. It's not being pushed upon the junior team. It's probably based on the relationship, honestly, that the either general manager, the junior team, or coach has with the agent or the NHL team involved, where there's a mutual understanding of what the player brings and what their skill set is and what the best system is for that player. And there's a good chance that if it wasn't the right system, that player wouldn't have flourished enough to be a first round pick. So, I mean, there's a bunch of things that go into it. for sure. But I've seen it on both ends. I've seen it where there's a little bit of a disconnect there too, and I've also seen it where it's extremely beneficial for both the player, the junior team, and the NHL team. And make no mistake, by the time the player is 19 years old, the NHL team at that point would have some influence on where that player plays at that point. So I guess, and I don't know of anything specific, but I guess if there was really that much of a disconnect between what the NHL team wanted and the system that the junior team would, I would say that at that point that maybe somebody would step in, maybe the agent would step in at that point and say, okay, it's time to make a change. But again, that's not anything specific. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that last scenario at all in my career. But again, at age 19, if this player's a high enough draft pick and the NHL team has that much influence, I could see a scenario where that would be a possibility.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I know the teams put so much of their time, and I see teams like more on the NHL side and obviously OHL, but thinking of like drafting, and they put so much time and resources into these guys that I just figured that they probably want their hand somewhere in the cookie jar along the way of tracking these guys, making sure the development's happening. But you don't have too much to worry about with, I feel like the OHL out of all of the American leagues, whether major, junior, or even on the American side, and then major, junior in Canada, I feel like that's most tailored towards the NHL. So there's probably not too much of a worry. You know, when you talk, college plays a different type of game than the NHL, there's no doubt. I think the Q, obviously, maybe more so than any other league, plays a more different style. And maybe, as to your point, maybe it's trending towards that way a little bit. And then I haven't seen so much of the WHL, but yeah.
I'd say the W plays a little bit more physical still. But, we see this with Cross Hannes too, and he's playing in Portland, and he's, one of the top prospects for the Wings. And even the WHL has a lot of skill in its league now with Bedard and Regina and Cross Hannes will keep it Wings for the most part in Portland. There's some high-end players in the Western Hockey League as well. But I think from systematic play and just in general, there's still a lot more room in the game there for the physical side of it.
So I wanted to, you talked about the Wings a little bit. Wanted to talk about the Wings. Obviously, that's our team. And but
we're talking. This is the Wings. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I was like, what? This is news to me. I'm a Toronto fan. No, obviously you're on the road a lot, I would have to imagine, or you're at least watching whether it's home or on the road, and you're watching Saginaw. You're at every single one. Have you been able to catch any of the Wings games? Have you been watching any of the AHL organization, any of those guys play? Just don't know. So that's going to tailor my next question.
Sure.
So answer with caution.
I do. I grew up in Detroit area. I'm a Red Wings fan. There's just as much pain for me as there's been for Red Wings fans over the last few years. And you just want it to go well. Like Detroit as a sports city without the Red Wings being successful doesn't feel right to me. I mean, I'm 31 years old. All I know is the Red Wings having success, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's been difficult to see this go as long as it has, right? Where this is probably the first year where we've seen a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here, that the young core they have here has the ability to be a winner, but they still have a lot of pieces left to go.
Yeah.
And they play in the toughest division in hockey. I mean, that's arguable. You could say the Metro is tougher than the Atlantic, whatever, but like, I think with Tampa and Toronto, like those guys are going to be there for years to come, right? So, and Boston might take a step back, but they're still there too. So the playoffs in this Atlantic division, like you're going to have to be a really, really good team to make the playoffs. So I think the Red Wings are still, I know people don't want to hear this, but they're still a little ways away.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned some of the younger core, Joey. So, what are your thoughts on Seider and Raymond currently? Those are like the two young guys that we have. Do you think that's a good two players to build around? Or do you feel like there's, they still have lots to step up to?
No, I'd be crazy. I'd be crazy to say that's not a good start.
We almost had to stop. We almost had to stop the episode.
Right.
I wouldn't blame you. You know, if you got somebody on this podcast and they said, you know, I'm not sure about Mo Sider and Lucas Raymond being the core of this team's future, you might as well just kick them off, end the show.
Right.
Opinions are relevant because, I mean, Mo Sider, if not for Yossi and Makar, I mean, for me, he should be in the Norris conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's a slam dunk that he's the Calder. He's playing 23 minutes a night. Like, I don't know if people understand how big that is as a rookie in the NHL to
and
be
on the
playing,
top line.
And yeah, as a top pairing defenseman, as a rookie, eating up 22, 23 minutes a night on average, you just don't see that. I mean, Nick Lidstrom wasn't even doing that as a rookie, and he was older than Sider. So we haven't seen this. He will win a Norris. I mean, it seems like that's not even a hot take. He'll definitely win a Norris before his career's over.
How many can he?
It's just a matter of how many will he win. Like he's so good, and Lucas Raymond's really good too. I think they're at a good start. I'm concerned about some younger players that they're leaning on currently that may have taken a step back,
like
recently. Yeah, I think Joe will be okay. He's gonna need some time. That's what I mean. Like I guess the timetables changed, right? I thought, I think maybe this year everyone thought that this was okay. We're gonna see a more competitive Red Wings team. We've seen that? We have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like let's be fair. We've seen a more competitive Red Wings team at times this year.
Or 11-2 loss.
Okay, now they're still pulling the Houdini act some nights, which is not good. Like this is if you're going to be a playoffs team, you can't lose 11-2 to Pittsburgh. Like you can't lose a home and home against Ottawa.
If you're in the NHL, can't do either of those things. Like as an NHL team, it's like no offense to like the Walleye or something, but it's like almost like they just put on the Red Wings jerseys and because they looked like it wasn't the full NHL team out there. They'd have the third and fourth line out, and it's like, first of all, you can't tell the difference between the first and the fourth line on some of those games, which is not good because if you watch any other team, especially in playoffs, there is like a very, very clear, like, oh, that guy is, those top two center are really good. And not to say, obviously Larkin is number one center and he's been unbelievable this year. But, it's tough to watch some of those games when there's just no depth and it gets exposed on such a high level that, it's rough. And I don't know if that comes down to the players, if that comes down to the coaching, if that comes down to both and they kind of feed off the other hand a little bit. But I know there's a lot of talk with coaching right now. So I know we want to jump in on that as well, but go ahead and finish your thought on the team and some of the younger guys in that core as well.
Yeah. I opened some notes I had here. So I'm not looking directly at the camera right now, but this is the only reason I'm doing that is because there's players that are on expiring contracts that the Red Wings have to make decisions about this year. There's veteran players and there's prospects that are running out of time. Like what is Taro Hirose?
Who knows?
And that's the thing. I feel like he hasn't got much of an opportunity up at the higher level.
Right.
And in the moments he has, he's either done okay or it's been mediocre. And so it's kind of hard when you're not having an up and down, back and forth. You can't really get a good couple games in to see what you really can do up that level.
All right. So here's some players that the Red Wings have on expiring contract this year that they have to make decisions on. Like, is Sam Gagner the new Thomas Vanek? Like, are we keeping him around to be the veteran leader on this? Okay. I'm just asking, like, Sam Gagner. Okay. Mitchell Stevens. I could see them extending Mitchell Stevens. We didn't get to see too much, but what we did see, again, this is to me a Luke Glendening replacement.
Yeah.
Nice player. Played in Saginaw. Nice depth centerman, reliable face-off guy, and a good penalty killer in the NHL. He was a star in junior, but that's not him as an NHL player, which is fine.
You know your role, and you don't ask him to do too many things. You don't put him in uncomfortable situations. Like you said, if you can get out there, provide a spark, win the face-off, play a penalty kill, like there's your spot in the NHL. That's your bread and butter right there.
Perfect. I know a lot of millionaires that do that.
Yeah, right.
You know, here's another guy like Chase Pearson. Like Chase Pearson's probably an AHL player, right? Well, he's on an expiring contract, but he's gotten games in the NHL this year.
Mm-hmm.
So again, there's another player, Riley Barber. Like this is probably a veteran AHL player,
guy.
but he's gotten looks in the NHL. And we've seen what he can do in the American League. He's a pure sniper.
Yeah,
right?
He's a goal scorer. That's such a hard player. I mean, you look at him, he's the top production guy for the Griffins. And then also if you look at him across the league, I mean, he's always pretty high up there. And he's I don't know if he's a lifer in the AHL, if he's got a spot. Does he want to sign or does he want to look for another opportunity? Like it's tough.
Because he's done this dance. He's done this dance.
He knows the
Hershey.
Yeah.
Right. So he's done the AHL, NHL dance before. Now he's an extremely reliable asset to have at the AHL level. That's why I guess you sign him on an AHL deal at this point. He's still pretty young. I think he's a 94.
Is he? So, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
You can definitely, if there's any
Carter Rowney,
injury,
right? Like Carter Rowney.
The list goes on.
Well, here's the one that's the most intriguing to me. Philip Zadina. What is Philip Zadina? He's on an expiring entry-level deal.
He, to me, is a guy that always, and this is no hot take at all, but the pieces need to fall together perfectly, and he's a really good NHL player. The problem is he's a skill guy, but not skilled enough to be only a skill guy in the NHL. There's only a few skill guys in the NHL. You look at a Patrick Kane, you look at McKinnon's not even a pure, like those guys are elite. Like there's a handful of them, 5 to 10 that are only skill guys. He doesn't do enough in the neutral zone and defensive zone currently, and he's not producing enough in the offensive zone. So that's really tough because he's an NHL player, but he's not a third or fourth line player. And right now he's not playing like a first or second line player. So what do you do?
I don't think he fits on this roster. And I say that with all due respect to him as a player. I just think based on the Red Wings needs and what they have, who do you play Philip Zadina with? Okay, you play him with Verana, but then that makes sense, but we never see that.
I know.
Right? Like they get out there for a half shift together and they're unreal. And then that's the last time you see it the rest of the night because they were in the middle of a line change.
Right. And, maybe it is a new look for him that we've talked about that. We said
100%.
He looks like a player that is, like I said, is an NHL guy. And if you get somewhere else with another, a good line that has more depth than the Red Wings do right now, then he could light it up and it'd be happy for him. But it's just tough in a rebuild.
So you didn't mention Mark Stahl.
I didn't mention Mark Stahl. I figured that was a given that he wouldn't be here next year.
100%. Well, I mean, is that the same conversations? I mean, DeKaiser's not coming back. Period.
Right.
So you're saying Mark Stahl no too? We're not gonna give him nothing.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, I think Mark Stahl would want to go somewhere where they could win a Stanley Cup. Like 100%. I think you can help a team win as a fifth or sixth piece.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have deep prospects in the organization right now that are going to want their fair shake. And you're not going to be pulling a guy like Stahl. Like right now, you put some of the younger guys in.
We didn't even get into the defensemen. There's two guys. There's three guys that are really interesting to me. Here they are, all on expiring deals. Wallman at $725K and Ole Olevi at $750K and Dan Renouf at $850K. And that's not even mentioning Ryan Murphy, who's probably a veteran AHL player at this point. He's probably on an AHL deal. But let's keep it to Wallman, Yolevi, and Renouf, who have all played in the NHL this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like Wallman's probably earned it. He's looked pretty good since coming over from St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
You got one more year of Osterley at 1.3. That's fine, I guess. But then it's like Yolevi's been just okay. That's a first-round pick in this league. It's like tough. You got him for almost nothing. You might as well give it a shot, right? Like that's the way I see Yolevi. Like I watched Ole Olevi play junior, and he was a part of one of the best power plays in London that I've ever seen in my life. With him and Mete running the point, and Mitch Marner, Matthew Tkachuk, and Christian Dvorak as the forwards.
It's not a bad line.
and it wasn't fair.
I think I could tally up like, I don't know, 60, 70 points on that power play.
Easily. So I liked when they picked up Yo Levy because I liked him as a junior. It just has not worked out for him in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see him get an opportunity, but then there's players like, Donovan Sabrango's knocking on the door. I mean, he looked really good for Grand Rapids, and I mean, he could be ready as soon as next year. Johansson's overseas. I don't know. I don't see him very often, but
all
he could
signs look like he's
Soderblom.
good.
Soderblom too, yeah. And then you got there's unsigned guys too. Edvinson, Wallander.
Yeah,
like, those guys aren't signed yet, but
that could be an entire young D, not even D core. That's like your entire D unit, and that's what I'm thinking about when you have some of these older guys that are NHL guys. It's like the Stalls, right? And that's why it makes sense to, maybe not bring him back and give him the opportunity to go win somewhere else, because we have a lot of things we need to figure out, especially on the D side.
But so if we get rid of those veteran players, we try to find like a mid-age player to kind of be that leadership in the defensive role? Do we kind of lean on Cider for that? That's kind of like, that's the only reason I think we keep, you got to get.
I think it depends.
You keep one of Stahl or DeKaiser then probably.
You keep a Stahl or DeKaiser, not those two particularly.
Right. One of not both.
Yeah.
But you gotta get DeKaiser. I mean, DeKaiser's $5 million.
He's out. Either that or he's gotta be signing at like $1 million. I'm just being,
and that'll. I mean, when you list some of those guys, that are playing over in the SHL, and that are going to be on entry level deals at some point, you just have to take advantage of those guys, because it's not going to be long before Cider and Raymond and Bertuzzi and Larkin are all asking for huge money, and there's your window right there. Whenever those contracts are in play, and you have the younger guys coming in with entry level deals that are really good, like that's your only window. And you saw it with Colorado when they were building, and now they're still kind of, they're there still, obviously doing amazing. But it all started from people being on entry level deals and then being able to handle the money. And that's what I think a lot of the Red Wings fans are trusting Yzerman with, is knowing what to do with these contracts, who to say bye to, and who to keep.
It's a good example. This is the only reason I'm going to bring it up, but this is what I thought should have happened with Toronto. They had to win the cup when one of Marner, Matthews, or Nylander was on an entry level. Yeah, because they put them. It's not anybody's fault. I mean, the organization drafted well and they performed, right? Like, it's nobody's fault. But the way that the structure of the cap is, by having all those players on expiring entry levels and being elite as young players and missing their window to win the cup in that situation because they weren't quite ready as a group. I mean, it was a bizarre situation. Having all three of them needing a contract handcuffed the organization so that they couldn't go out and add to a team that was cup ready.
Yep.
I mean, it's just, that's where we're at.
I mean, they were pulling,
and that could easily happen to Detroit.
Exactly, and that's like my nightmare, is having to say goodbye to some of these guys, or doing what's probably worse, is doing what Toronto did, and then having an immediate rebuild whenever you have a couple years with those contracts for a fun team to watch, but they're not going to have the depth to win the cup.
They're out in the first round against Boston every year, guaranteed.
So this is what I'm saying. You go back, it's the same battle that Toronto's been battling for 5 years now.
Yep.
You're good team all the way through, and then you get to the playoffs, and there you go. Yep. Things change. Game changes. Can't win with 20-year-olds in the playoffs.
Playoffs a new beast. It's a whole different kind of hockey. It's not the same as regular season. So I mean,
some people don't like that either. People are trying to fix that too. And they want to call it the way it is in the regular season in the playoffs.
Oh, what?
I don't agree with that.
We can get into that too if you'd like.
Well,
I would love for the playoffs to stay the same, because that is the most fun. So I'm like not a casual hockey fan. Like, we're all not casual. We're hockey fans in general. But I know there's casual hockey fans that will just watch the playoffs because it's so fun to watch, and it's so much different than the regular season. The speed and the intensity, it's unmatched. So don't want to see that changed.
The people ask me, like, what's the difference? Well, it's just like, it's the 50-50 puck on the boards.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this entirely different game.
Right.
It's the game within the game that changes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the 50-50 puck on the boards. And like that same regular season game on a Tuesday night, I might give you the inside edge because I got, a knee thing or an arm thing, or maybe I just gave you the inside edge because it's a Tuesday night in the regular season. But guess what? In the playoffs, I don't care if I have a knee thing or an arm thing.
Yeah.
I don't care what night it is in the playoffs, man. Like, I'll go through you for that puck.
Look at Chara.
Shoot me up, doctor.
And that's the difference. I mean, it's not this like big elaborate explanation for why it's different in the playoffs and the regular. That's all it is. It's just there's nothing easy. Nothing's easy.
I would say like a really good example and something that I've done personally. Hand up. This is me being bad at something and not giving it my all. But if you're on a team that doesn't have a spot to go to the playoffs, it's very easy for a forward to not be on your point and be like a half step behind, so you don't have to block that shot and hit your ankle and get hurt. Where in the playoffs, you're not going to be a half step behind you, but your body in front no matter what. So it's just a little like mind things. You're like, I just missed it. Bummer. Like I still look like I gave it my all. It's not going to show. It's not going to show up on camera. No big deal on video when we watch it tomorrow. It still looks.
Well, you better not get to it, because I swear if Mo ever saw you pull a flamingo, you would be just absolutely bad.
I was too good at and I think any hockey player is. It's what it is? It's the skate back for an icing when you try your hardest to skate back to the puck and you just don't have it all. We've all perfected skating fast and slow at the same time. So
it's all in the arms, man.
It is. Yeah, Mo would have my head. I don't want that.
Well, just like the high stick that comes around your chest and the head goes like that. It's the same thing on the icing when you get the head into it and the arms and oh yeah.
So you had a hot take about the Beagle Terry fight?
Well, I don't know if it's a hot take. It's just a take. It's a level-headed, logical approach.
Let's hear it.
That I'm not seeing from a lot of people.
Oh, so just so everyone knows, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead and set it up.
Zegers came out, was really upset because they hurt or they punched one of the top goal scorers on the team, and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, Troy Terry.
Yeah,
but okay. There was a Michigan goal earlier in the game.
Yep. And
I'm pretty sure, I don't know about a goal, but like I think somebody went between the legs to set up a goal or something like that. And it was 5-0 in Arizona, so it's in their home building.
Yeah.
And so my take on this whole thing is nobody did anything wrong.
I don't disagree.
Their skill guys, Zegras, Comtois, Sonny Milano, Troy Terry, like that's their team. That's what they do. That's their direction as an organization, is skill first, right? And Arizona right now is what it is. They're not a very good hockey club, and they got problems. They got problems on the ice. They got problems off the ice. I mean, they're looking at playing in a 5,000 seat rink next year. Like the Spirit play in a bigger building than that. So it's tough, and I'm not trying to throw stones here. It's just the reality of the situation. Yep. And I don't think anybody did it. I don't think Jay Beagle did anything wrong. They were getting shown up at home, and that's his role. Just like it is that Zegras and Terry and all those guys, Milano, Comtois, like that's their role, is to score goals and make them look as good as possible because they got all the skill in the world. Jay Beagle doesn't have that skill, obviously. Yeah. Jay Beagle's a face-off guy, penalty killer, and he's physical. And so he made his impact on the game the way he does, and they made their impact in the game on the way they do. And you can argue what should be and what shouldn't be until you're blue in the face. But the reality is, until they completely take fighting out of the game, so intimidation and physicality is still part of the game.
So Joey, on that,
let's see him do it again. That's what that's the reality. That's what Jay Beagle and the Arizona Coyotes are walking away with that night. Let's see him do it again.
Mhm.
Yeah. So on that, I was watching hockey one night, and there was a reporter that said we should take fighting completely out of the game. What are your thoughts on taking fighting out of the game of hockey?
I just
It's like not worthy of a response.
He's like, I'm not even gonna justify that with an answer.
look. I've seen like the only reason I shake my head is I've seen kids get. I've seen people get really hurt by
Yeah.
stick
Mhm.
infractions and hits from behind.
Mhm.
Because it's not
I've seen
because no one's doing anything about it.
I've seen more long-term or career-ending injuries from stick fouls or hits from behind. I've seen zero career-ending fighting injuries in my career. Now, that's not to say they don't exist. I haven't seen them, right? But
700
I've seen a
games,
kid.
folks.
Yeah, I've seen
So
some really bad injuries over the years that have come from illegal hits to the head, and that's the real problem in hockey. Is there's a lack of either geography location on the ice where you don't respect the player in the position that the player's in, or you just don't care and you're reckless and you're just hitting to hit.
Mhm.
And it's not I'm not the game is so fast, it's really hard to it's so hard to hit in the open ice. It's hard to hit on the boards, let alone hit in the open ice. And I get all that. I just think if you take fighting out of the game, it you're almost enabling that type of behavior, that recklessness to continue.
Mhm.
Fighting is like the equalizer,
yep.
right? Like that changes the way you go about your business out there. If you
Yeah.
have to fight for what you're doing, okay, now we're like that's a different ball game
Yeah,
to
and
me.
you see it firsthand too with a guy that like you see a big hit. So there's two ways. You see a big hit that's clean, and a guy will turn around to protect himself because he knows something's coming.
Yeah.
And then again, you see a hit that's not clean, and you see him turn around and protect himself because there's going to be a guy on the opposing team that's going to rip the guy's head off. So that story where people are hitting and it could be a dangerous hit. It could even be like a crazy, clean big hit on a superstar. But because they're making that hit and they know that something's coming from the other guys, that's in their head right now. Like when they're playing, they know that they're going to have to stick up for themselves. And believe me, they'll think twice about it when they're on the ice because they already are when they make that hit, whether it's by accident, not accident, because people will do something in front of the net that's stupid and feel like they need to apologize right away, or they're, and then it gets into a fight. So, I think it's so good that it's in the game because it gives that person something in the back of their mind to say, okay, I need to not you ran this guy from behind, or
100%.
cross check the goalie in the back of the head, or do something because you're gonna have to pay for it if you do that.
So no
Look,
slap shot stuff.
If I want to, if anyone made a mistake or anyone was in the wrong and what happened with the Ducks and the Coyotes and the fight with Beagle and Terry, it's the Ducks, and here's why. At the trade deadline, they traded Nick Delorier away to Minnesota. And Nick was one of the most sought after players in the league at the deadline, not because of the way he can put the puck in the net. However, he's not a bad player, but he can fight. He's probably one of the better fighters in the NHL now. And Minnesota saw value in that. They're a team that's going to be in it down the stretch, I think. And
so.
they went out and got him. And so at that point, the Anaheim Ducks made a decision that they were willing to live with those players having to stick up for themselves, in my opinion. Based on the way the rules are today, as an organization, they made a decision that those players can handle themselves enough to be able to withstand what they were going to receive from other teams when they do their lacrosse goals and their between the legs goals.
Yep.
No, I agree with that.
That's the reality of the situation. So they put themselves in a bit of a spot doing that. Now, don't misconstrue that. I'm not saying they deserved it. I'm saying that when they traded Delorier away, they had nobody there to protect those young guys anymore. And that will happen.
Yeah.
Now that could have happened again. Delorier could have been on the bench. Like, what are the chances Delorier's out there with Terry and Zegras? Like, probably not good. So that could have happened anyway. But I got a feeling that late in a 5-0 game, you could argue, what are they doing out there anyway?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they should. Yeah. It's like opening the door for something like that to happen. And I guarantee you next time that they're going out there in a game where there's a blowout, that's going to be in the back. They know exactly why that happened. I mean, the players aren't stupid. So they're going to be thinking about that. They don't need any of the between the legs, the Michigan goals, the 3-on-1 backdoor tap-in type stuff when they're up by 5 and they have their first line out against the third or fourth line. And
I'm all for skill.
Yeah, right.
I am. I'm all for skill. I am. But as long as intimidation and physical play is still a part of this game, this is the response you're going to get.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm all for everything that happened. And maybe you said it best, Joey. It's like there wasn't really anybody in the wrong. So even if they were going to do that, then they have to answer for it. So do it all you want, but just know something is coming. And then whichever side prevails, whether they don't do it and nothing happens, then fine. Or they do it and they have to pay for it. And, then they have to know that moving forward.
100%. Okay, first of all, these guys play in the same division, right?
Right.
Arizona does not have the skill that Anaheim has, right? Okay, so they're down 5-0 at home. The mindset is like, if we can get those guys, whether it's intimidation or whatever it is, to not come at us the same way the next night, we have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
definitely.
the mindset. Jay Beagle isn't like, I'm going to go out there and punch this guy's face in and try to cave his face. It's what can I do as Jay Beagle
to get net
to help us win the next game?
Yep.
Well, like it or not, that's what he can do.
And they got to get the fans coming back at that. So they're going to have trouble selling out that 5,000 seat arena. So they're going to have to get all the fights they can get.
I know that's a whole nother bag of issues.
Look. Yeah, 100%. That's a tough look for the Coyotes. Yeah. Real quick. So is fighting in the CHL, that's a game misconduct?
No. So, and the rules vary across the Canadian Hockey League. Both the Quebec League and the Ontario League have fighting restrictions. The rules are actually different in all three leagues.
Okay.
The OHL is a 3-fight rule. You're suspended on your third fight. So
does that reset after 3? Like
no,
if you get a fourth fight, like
you continue to accumulate. So after your third fight, I think it's a 2-game suspension on your third fight. Then your fourth fight is like another 2. And then as it progresses, I think if you get up to, I don't know, we haven't had a player get anywhere near 10 fights. And I mean, we won't have a team that has over 1,000 penalty minutes this year in the OHL. Yeah. And we haven't had a team that's had over 1,000 penalty minutes since the 2015-16 season, which coincidentally enough was the last year that there wasn't a fighting rule in the OHL. So
surprise.
And it's not a bad thing. Like, to me, I'm not.
They don't. At that age,
I don't love watching. Yeah, I don't love watching junior age players fight. Yeah. It makes me a little uncomfortable. So, especially seeing the age gap. If I've seen a 20-year-old grab a 16-year-old, and it's very uncomfortable.
That's literally what I was going to say. There's that when you have there's a 16-year-old and a man literally fighting a kid. It's kind of different. Real quick. So one of the listeners brought up something about the Beagle fight. Says he's okay with everything Beagle did until after the 3rd, 4th, and 5th punch, knowing it was Troy Terry and still going. He says that's suspension worthy. What do you think on that?
I think, and I watched what happened last night with Wahlstrom and PK Subban. You guys happen to see that?
Yeah.
He came across the ice to grab Wahlstrom. That's not a hockey play.
Well, that was on Hughes, right? That was
right. So
Hughes got hurt in the corner. Yeah.
So the reason I bring this up to the person who asked the question is because to me, what Subban did was no longer within the realm of a hockey play. I mean, he skated all the way across the ice, grabbed Wahlstrom, and started filling him in. That's predatory. What Jay Beagle did, he got cross-checked in the back. And then Troy Terry grabbed him. He grabbed him out of the pile. So
Yeah,
I'm sorry, man. Like you picked the wrong dance partner, man.
That's like when Sveshnikov picked it up with Ovechkin. Ovechkin dropped his ass.
Yeah,
I mean, as long
you
as
got to know who you're Connor. I mean, you've been,
Connor,
you've been on the right end and the wrong end of that.
Yeah, I've been on the right end. Yeah, you got that right. So you know who's on the ice with you. That's for damn sure. There's it's a very real thing for you to check the game notes before you go out there and figure out what numbers have
100%. Why do you think I used to give you guys? I had a stack of 15 of them in the room every night, so that you guys made sure that you knew who had the. Because it wasn't hard to figure out in the North American League. You're like, okay, 30,
every single person,
40, 180, 362.
It's like, and that guy, he's 27 years old. How is he playing still?
It's his second tour of duty in the North American League somehow.
Like he's also the coach. This is weird.
No, but I guess to answer that viewer's question, I would say one, Terry engaged Jay Beagle first and then grabbed him from behind. And you have to know in that moment, and this is a little bit more like between the lines type stuff. You wouldn't know this if you weren't like playing, but Connor can speak to this. If you're down 4 or 5-0 at home with 5 minutes to go and somebody grabs you from behind, it doesn't matter who it is. They're going to get it.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think it's very different if you bring up Subban, which is a great example. If both players have an opportunity to defend themselves, and it doesn't matter at that point who the player is, but then the playing field to even, because you have you have an opportunity to turtle, you have an opportunity for somebody else, tie up, do something. Subban came in and he probably did his quote unquote job of protecting Hughes, but it maybe wasn't in the right way. You see a lot of guys will come slash a guy from behind, let him turn around, and let him know he's dropping him. Subban came over and tackled them. And I mean, it was crazy.
That was bizarre. I mean, it was a 3-on-2 coming back the other way, and then all of a sudden you just see a guy get grabbed in the corner and he's getting filled in. I was just like, what in the heck is going on? That to me, like when it starts to get away from what hockey is, like the game, and it gets into guys coming halfway across the ice and tackling somebody and fighting and jumping them, I'm fine with seeing it. Like for Subban, I'd be fine with seeing a suspension for that, because it's beyond the game at that point.
Yeah, it's not so like typically what I've seen happen is, like I said, there's either Subban will come up behind him, slash him in the calf, do something, pull his arm,
slew foot lately too.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Subban's had a lot of suspensions lately.
Yeah, but I mean, what I would probably have done in that situation, and what I see a lot in the NHL, is if that guy doesn't want to go at that point, then they're going to line him up throughout the rest of the game, and it's not going to be a fun game for that guy. Like if you want to go with somebody, there's ways to go with him, and it doesn't always have to be a fight right away. There's a million scrums in front of the net when you can pick a guy and go with him. So I agree. I don't like to see that kind of play, but I do understand when you have a guy like Hughes going out and not putting weight on his left or right knee, whatever it was. And you're a New Jersey team struggling and all that good stuff.
You do have to protect Jack Hughes
storm.
For sure. You do have to protect Jack Hughes, but in a different way.
There's a different way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, sure. I agree.
Good question though. It's fair. I think just that's like game situation, game management type. It's a different 5-0 at home, final couple minutes of the game, and you get grabbed from behind. Probably wires are going to cross in that situation, and that's just the way it is.
It doesn't happen in the playoffs. It doesn't happen if there's two teams that are competing for the playoff. Like that's the type of play that guys are smart and they'll wait, and they'll probably line them up next game if they in a series. But if there's a team that is one of the worst in the league and it's a 5-0 home loss, like it was a bad situation to have happen, because it was going to happen if something like that transpired, which it obviously did.
Yeah.
So I had one more thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up, Joey. We kind of mentioned it. So what's your thoughts on Blashill and the whole coaching situation? He's had plenty of time. I feel like the last few run of losing streaks, and
month and a half.
Yeah. March was rough. And we got outscored quite badly through the month of March.
They were just one stat. It was funny because there's been like 14 games played or something like that. When in that stretch, and the goals against average is over 5, and we had a shutout during that. So like we're probably looking at more towards 6 realistically. But anyway, I thought that was funny. It's like we're looking at a touchdown against us every single game.
Hard to win like that. I got to tell you, like the biggest thing and the thing that's most concerning that I took out of the most recent games was the media availability at the end of the game against Ottawa when Dylan Larkin said we're not having fun as a group. And to say that publicly, like you kind of have to read between the lines a little bit on that.
Players are done.
I mean, yeah, Connor, if your captain goes out publicly and says we're not having fun as a group and it needs to be fun again to come to the rink, that's a way of letting people know outside the organization that something needs to change here.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's talking about the players.
No, I don't either. No. Just because, especially the young group loves Dylan Larkin, and they've talked about it numerous times with the media. So I'd agree, Joey. I think it's coming down to the fact that Blash is on his way out after this season.
You don't see that too often from a captain either. I'm hoping that conversation was had privately between Dylan and Steve Yzerman. But even if it didn't, I mean, he's the captain. He can, it's his platform. He can say whatever he wants. But just in terms of harmony within the organization, I'm hoping that something was said privately. Even if it wasn't, then I guess it is what it is. But I think just from being around the game as long as I have, Connor, you've played. If your captain came out and said we're not having a whole lot of fun, speaking on behalf of the team, there's no reason why this group, other than losing, shouldn't be having any fun.
I would be very, very surprised if Larkin did that without having like a team meeting or players come up to him with some type of struggle. And it probably is the younger guys. The older guys have been through the ringer and they know enough. But
well, if you're an older guy, how could you hate playing for this team?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're in the lineup. You're getting you know what I mean?
Getting paid. Yeah. You're playing all the time. You're showing, this is just game film for your next signing.
100%. So I don't know, that was a little bit of a red flag that came up from the last game. They have some injuries. They're quite frankly, they're not getting very much goaltending lately, which is unfortunate because that at the beginning of the year and into the middle of the year was their strong suit, was their goal. Grice was playing well too. His game's really fallen off, and Nedeljkovic is almost the victim of some, there's been some shoddy goals, but there's been some shoddy D zone coverage. There's been breakaways and odd man rushes, and
we talked about that. It's so hard, unless you're watching every game. Actually, Tyler and I last episode we were talking about how it's so hard because what we see happening, and these goalies are. For better and for worse, they're so mental, like more than any other player out there. They have to be mentally sound before the game, and I don't know if anybody has been in the locker room with any goalies before a game, but they're completely off limits. You don't talk to them; they do their own thing. And what'll happen, what I see happening with Nedeljkovic specifically, is he'll have 2-3 goals let up against him that backdoor breakaways, 2-on-1s, 3-on-0s, like literally 3-on-0s. And he gets scored on, and then there will be one bad goal that might be the third or fourth goal. And it's like, yeah, that's a bad goal, but that same exact goal doesn't happen if he didn't have 2 or 3 goals against him, because goalies, like I said, they are so mental and they are so streaky that it's just like a perfect storm for these goalies, specifically Nedeljkovic, to just kind of fall apart.
That's the backbreaker, right? Because if you mentioned them, there could be 3 goals. One's a breakaway, one's a 2-on-1, and one's a backdoor tap in. And then the fourth goal is like the one that he played in on himself that one game.
Right.
And you lose 4-3, and no one remembers the backdoor tap ins and the breakaways and the 2-on-1s. And then as a fan base, you're walking away with it like, did you see that goal that went on Nedeljkovic? Are you kidding me? And it's like, well, it's like, yeah, that's gonna happen.
He stood on his head for every other shot other than these backdoor tap in type. Yeah. So
It
Yeah, I
can
think we're
cloud
on the same
judgment, I
page.
guess is what I'm trying to say. When you have a
Definitely.
team that's are what they are defensively, they're cider, and then unfortunately kind of everybody else, and they have minute munchers the rest of the way. You know, you get what you get. I don't know. They have players that are playing above their role. They have players that are playing probably at or below their role. I don't know. This isn't the roster that was built to be a winner, right? So we can't be too upset. Like this is the thing that I had to remind myself too, because sometimes I get into fan mode and I'm like, man, I really thought this team would win this year. And then I really sit down and I look at this roster and I break it down and I think about it as like, this roster wasn't built to win.
You're like, yeah, why would they win?
This isn't a winning team.
No, it's almost like a hodgepodge.
It's getting there. This is what it takes. This is what it takes. It's not a 1 year and then, people saw Steve Yzerman as a cure-all, and that's just not how it works. Like, you can't go out and buy a team anymore.
Nope.
Right?
Not with the cap. Not with the cap.
And that's why every single time you watch Yzerman's interviews, he's like, it's a process, guys. Like, it's going to take time. Like, he's setting the stage and hoping, fans can give him that leeway to let him do what he's going to do. So far, I like what he's done. He's won a lot of these different trades. He's made a lot of good moves. But I just think, like you mentioned, we got to give him time where on the positive note, where I feel like we're on the upswing, where it can be really bad. Back when you look at the Wings in 2015, they almost look like how Chicago is now. I would hate to be a Chicago fan right now. And so I feel happy that we are on the upswing. I think, we are. Every year is at least fun to watch now. Doesn't matter if we're in the playoffs, not in the playoffs, we're building where, it's not fun when your team's falling apart and you have your whole, dynasty is ending.
Yeah. Well, look, the Red Wings going into this thing had the hardest strength of schedule, I think, in the final 2 months of the season, any team in the NHL. Right. So I didn't see this thing going very much differently than it has. I just didn't I didn't see them losing a home and home against Ottawa. Like, I got to be honest,
right.
I didn't see that coming. Right. So there are some things that are a little bit noteworthy that way and in a bit of a negative way. But other than that, it's mostly as expected. Like, as advertised, this is not a playoff team yet. And I don't know. Again, they have some interesting decisions to make here when it comes to the veteran players they do have that are on expiring contracts. Like, what the role for Robbie Fabry is another question. Like, is he a really solid depth player, or is he a fringe top six?
Yeah.
On a good team, on a playoff team, he's probably a really, really good depth piece.
That's what you want.
That's what you want, right? Pius Suter, same thing. Like, I don't know. I've seen him. I could see him projecting out as a second line center for sure.
Yeah.
But is he a second line center on a division championship team?
No, not even close.
Okay, this is where we're far from done, I guess, is the best way to put it. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but we've seen signs.
Yeah,
not to go full doom. Like, I'm not, not trying to go full doom and gloom here. Like, we've seen signs that it's positive. There's just players that are playing like beyond their, like, I think Philip Hronek's playing beyond his role, like beyond who he is as an NHL defenseman. And I don't think that's fair to him. I think he's a very, very solid 3 or 4.
Yeah.
In the NHL.
For him to be having as much ice time as he does, to be in the 22, 23 to 25 minutes a game is just, it's outlandish. There's on almost every other team, the top 20 teams in the NHL, he would not be anywhere close to that.
15 minutes or so.
He's probably 15 to 18 minutes. Joey, before we went on, you talked about second power play. That is a perfect spot for him to be on the second power play. And then to have him not against the first or second line forwards, or just at least not the first line, that can make such an impact, especially for just that mental psyche of knowing that you're not going to be minus 50. Like
100%. Like what was he? It was minus 38, I think, a couple years ago.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just. I mean, what are you going to do with that? Then what do you bring to the table when you want to resign? Say, hey, I play 25 minutes a night, but I'm also minus. Like I could go out there and play. So it's just not the perfect. It's just not the perfect situation. So I totally agree with you there. It's not great. It'd be nice to see him go. It'd be fun to actually watch him on a better team. Play with in his role and play offensive and not have to worry about being a lockdown guy, because that's just not what he is.
No, he's a puck mover, man. Like I just watched him in junior the year he played here in Saginaw. Like, first of all, I think he plays a lot now. He was probably playing like 35 minutes a night in Saginaw. We weren't a playoff team that year, and Phil just kept coming to the coach here at the time, who's actually with the Maple Leafs now, Spencer Carberry, and saying, I want to play. Like, I just want to keep playing. So he play in every situation, power play, penalty kill, and top line defense. And he learned a lot about playing defense, playing over here in junior. Yeah. And, luckily he did, because he's out there top pairing now and playing against the best. How many times does the Wings play Tampa every year, and Boston and Toronto? It's like, you see these guys top lines on these teams, like they're elite players.
Right.
So I don't know. You guys said it perfectly. He's a second pair guy, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. That's fine. He's just being asked to play above his head for sure.
Yeah. Well, Joey, I think that's it for us right now. I know we ate up an hour of your time, which we always appreciate. Your hockey knowledge is always fun to test, and you always come out on top. So appreciate that. We'll definitely have you back on, and good luck to Saginaw for the rest of you. You only have 2 weeks left? Is that what you said? Or a couple?
Yeah, we got just a handful of games left. We're going through the 16th, and running on fumes right now, guys. But I appreciate you having me, and it's good to talk. It's good to talk Wings and prospects, and it is an exciting time. Like, make no mistake, it's exciting because we're in a better spot today than we were at this time last year, right? So that's the most important thing. And we've seen signs of growth at all levels with the prospects, whether it's in the NHL, overseas, or in the American League. So that's good. We're getting there. It's just like turning a ship, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. It takes a little bit. So we'll definitely have to have you back on when we either right at the draft or maybe after we get this roster figured out, more towards the Traverse City type time frame when the boys go up there. And it'd be fun to see where this comes out and what prospects we were able to bring over and kind of who's making the team here. So
before I get going here, there's one player I want to leave you guys with. He's had a heck of a year in Windsor, and he's unsigned right now, but he's the only Red Wings prospect playing in the OHL this year. Is Pasquale Zito. And this kid can play it any way you want. He's a little bit of sandpaper. He's a little old school. Kind of reminds me of you, Connor, a little bit.
Yeah, there we go. Sign him.
There you go, right? That's what I'm saying. Must be good, right?
Must be awesome, yeah.
He's got a little sandpaper to his game. Like, he'll fight, he'll hit. And he plays on their top line when he's healthy. So I don't know. I like him a lot. We'll see what happens.
Oh,
he's
awesome.
playing this year for the Spits, and they could go deep, man. They're top team in the West, and I like their group quite a bit.
Oh, man. Awesome. We'll keep an eye on him for sure. I love the little tidbits you throw at us. So it'd be funny when we actually realize that name. We're like, we knew it first. We can tell the people that we knew it first.
There you go, guys.
Exactly.
All right,
well,
boys.
Joey, thank you.
All right. See you later.
See ya.